how much trouble can I possibly get into? But let's talk about the Imola Grand Prix. And even though there's no official word about the Imola GP, it seems like it's not on the calendar for the foreseeable future, which sucks because this race was pretty good. It had heartbreak, it had great strategies, bad strategies, the safety cars, the incidences, the overtakes, the passes, the sassy radios, kind of everything you want a decently good race to have. It's definitely an old school venue, and you couldn't miss the atmosphere even through the television, or in my case, F1 TV. Seeing the fans, hearing them, seeing the red smoke. I have to go to an F1 race in Italy because I just feel like a race in Italy is a little bit different than when I went to Barcelona and, of course, the 3 United States Grand Prix. Again, just because we're saying goodbye for now doesn't mean we're saying goodbye forever. So hopefully it'll find its way back. It seemed as if Red Bull and McLaren have confused each other. McLaren said that Red Bull was surprisingly quick, though Red Bull is saying that they didn't bring any crazy upgrades and it's McLaren who slowed down. Insert Spider-Man meme here. Unfortunately for Piastri, in turn 1, Max Verstappen saw an open door, and he took it with an incredible pass that everyone loved. That I even saw a tweet that said, hate watching Max Verstappen is so hard because he's just so good at racing. Post-race interview, even before heading to the podium, he said it wasn't his strongest Sunday, or the team's strongest Sunday, which is like when I complain about being a New York Yankees fan and that we had a really bad 2024. But then people are quick to remind me that we made the World Series. So, how bad was it really? I just love that kind of mentality from Oscar Piastri that it's not good enough unless it's first place, otherwise you're last. Lando Norris qualified 4th, and then during the race he pitted, and then 1 lap after Esteban Ocon caused the virtual safety car, which was unfortunate timing for him. But Kimi Antonelli's full safety car made sure Lando Norris got fresh rubber, so it really worked out for him. I did appreciate his radio when he was sitting behind Piastri during the full safety car. Just radio in saying, hey, I just noticed Piastri's tires look a little bad. We can switch if you want, no big deal. But he will race for that position, which he ultimately ended up doing. It looked a little close to me, but nothing happened. It was all good. And Norris with the P2. And then if we're talking about P2 and P3, we gotta talk about P1, which is Max Verstappen, the race winner. He, of course, had that really great move on the outside of Oscar Piastri, and then he was able to stretch his stint out really long on those mediums, which is interesting because Helmut Marko said in the beginning of the season, in the first couple of races, that tire degradation is something that Red Bull suffers with. And then all the safety cars worked out in his favor. This was Red Bull's 400th Formula One race, which Max Verstappen won, so that must have felt pretty good. And of course, we had to talk about that second Red Bull seat. Yuki Tsunoda suffered a terrible crash during qualifying. He's luckily okay. Did say though that he's no longer going to try to be the hero during qualifying, which sucks because I think this is the same thing that happened to Sergio Perez. They're giving me the same remnants of what happened to Sergio Perez incidents. Then all of a sudden it just shakes your confidence. You have to control this car that your teammate's doing exceptionally well at doing. Have a lot of pressure. The press is on you. Your seat and job is unknown for the foreseeable future. And then you start to do progressively worse. We do not see that happening yet. Of course, this just happened with Yuki Tsunoda, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen. And if the race is anything to show, he started from pit lane and he ended up in P10. We love Yuki in the points. Yoinks! I feel like this is a big thing we just have to talk about Franco Colapinto and everything that's surrounding him. Unfortunately, Franco Colapinto was in headlines for the wrong reasons. Well, the first one was that he crashed out in Q1. He's totally okay, but that obviously doesn't set him up well for the race. You get stuck behind Nico Hülkenberg, then a terribly timed virtual safety car for your pit stop makes it extremely tough to get any points. And I'm pretty sure Briatore said he just has to do 3 things. Drive fast, don't crash, score points. So this weekend wasn't really set up for him, and I feel kind of bad considering everything else that's happening in addition to just the race weekend itself. Colapinto had to plead with fans to be respectful to Yuki Tsunoda after a nothing burger situation in practice. The FIA and Alpine even put out statements recently about it, and there's a very big difference between passion and just straight up toxicity. You're doing your driver more harm than good, a disservice. Double-clicking into this though, you also had Mick Doohan, Jack Doohan's father, be a victim of a parody account. Formula Fakers posted this story from Mick Doohan, except it's completely fake. And then supposedly ESPN Argentina took it and ran with it. And I'm gonna rant for a little bit. You'll be very obvious right here how long I ran for. But I never understood the popularity of news aggregate accounts. We see these pop up everywhere, and people seem to follow these more than actual news accounts. Some of these accounts just take actual articles and repost them. And then sometimes they'll tweet out either fake things they come up with or rumor accounts. So they're just collecting everything they possibly hear, false or true, and then people just run with it and just don't read the article. I never understood the popularity of this. ESPN Argentina should have never gone with this. They should have done their due diligence. They're obviously called Formula Fakers for a reason. This is not the first time a series has been debated by fake news. I just don't get it. Just don't get it. Oh god, I feel like I should talk about Fernando Alonso and Aston Martin. On his radio, Fernando Alonso said he was the unluckiest driver in the world, and I would have to agree a little bit considering how his season has been going. The man is still completely pointless. They did an aggressive tire strategy in qualifying, which really paid out for them, but then they overreacted to some early pit stops from other drivers, and then the safety cars just compounded the issue to their P11 and P15. I think at some point Fernando Alonso was actually competing with Nico Hülkenberg in a Sauber for P10, though I think Aston Martin fans should be encouraged by this. Clearly their floor and bodywork upgrades are working. P11 just outside the point with a terrible strategy isn't the worst thing. And I know it's just one race and we want to look for patterns, but I think they're trending slowly upward. And that is similar with Ferrari. I know it's a P4, P6, and a lot of people are saying that we shouldn't celebrate Ferrari being a P4, P6. They should be a P1, P2. But look where they were previously. You can relish in a little bit of joy and then, okay, let's keep doubling down. And I would also put on Williams with that. I think Williams is underachieving. Carlos Sainz says we don't execute well on Sunday. Sainz obviously could have qualified a lot better if he had the traffic problems, and he was the faster of the two Williamses. We love a P5, P8, and because he was faster, I think he could have gotten a P4 or P3. And again, Williams fans have hope because you're trending upwards pretty well. So I'm looking out for those three teams. This is what I like to see. Competition everywhere. Improvements everywhere. So the next race is Monaco, and that's an outlier for me because there's no other racetrack like it, and it's Monaco. Like, it is what it is. It's just a standalone. It is what it is. So as a reminder of Monaco, in September 2022, race organizers signed a deal to keep the Monaco Grand Prix until 2025. However, in November 2024, they signed another extension to keep it on the calendar until 2031. However, with this new deal, the Monaco Grand Prix will move from the final weekend in May to the first weekend in June. So we will no longer have a motorsport Christmas. A fun fact from Lights Out blog, which I really appreciated, a win for a Mercedes-powered car could see Mercedes equal Ford Cosworth as the most successful engine manufacturer on the Monaco Grand Prix. Monaco, don't forget, we have the FIA's new mandatory 2 pit stop rule. Regardless if it is wet or dry, drivers will stop twice. That's to impact race strategy and to create more drama, because Pirelli, my favorite thing to talk about, is bringing the C6 again. The C6 did and didn't do what it was supposed to. They brought the C6 to Imola because they wanted to create more strategy, a 2-stop race. And it did that, but not because people used the tire, it's because teams didn't use the tire. The C6s were apparently faring only well for a really good qualifying lap. Drivers also said the tire moved around in cornering, a bit too much for their likings. And we still don't have a lot of data on the C6. Again, they bought it to Bahrain, nobody used it for preseason tests, and then no one's ever used it till practice of this past week. So from Pirelli's perspective, creating 2-stop races might be the way forward for this season. They're also thinking about skipping tire compounds, as in they would bring the C3, the C5, and the C6, skipping the C4 as opposed to going in order. Some fans are also suggesting why even bring 3 compounds, just bring 2, or force drivers to use all 3 compounds during the race. And at this point, I feel like we're getting a little gimmicky for race day. The aerodynamic innovations of Formula 1 are creating too much dirty air. And that's not Pirelli's fault. And I get it. That's the one thing we can control is the tires, but I'm constantly going back and forth in my head. It just feels gimmicky to me to be like, we're forcing you to do 2 stops, even though you don't need to. We're gonna bring only 1 compound. Was Bernie Ecclestone right about bringing sprinklers to the racetrack? I never thought I'd ever say that. Continuing with our Monaco talk, sorry, I went a whole tire rant per usual. Nelson Piquet described Monaco as riding a bike around your living room because it is so freaking narrow. Be on the lookout for qualifying, which everyone says to watch, and then the race, we'll see what happens, especially the forced 2-stopper. Who knows? My prediction is Oscar Piastri because he was mad about the P3, and I think he's just gonna lock in for Monaco. Lando Norris to me makes little mistakes here and there, and Oscar Piastri can lock in for a perfect lap run. I don't think Max Verstappen will be on the podium, considering Red Bull had issues with Monaco even last year when the car was a little bit better than this year. Hope you guys enjoy this weekend. I'm obviously very excited for Sunday where we'll have Monaco, the Indy 500, and the Coke 600. I will be very also fortunately going to the Indy 500 with Fox Sports. So if you want to see behind the scenes stuff, make sure you follow me on the other socials and whatnot. I have free reign and VIP passes, so how much trouble can I possibly get into?